Hello. Hey man, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm very good. Thank you for being here. Uh,
Yeah, no
I
problem.
so for people who don't know you, I found you through Twitter. Your Twitter account is quite famous on there, and you're a businessman, and
Yeah,
you
you could say that.
yeah. So w- can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is David Mendes. Um, I'm 24 years old. Um, in 2020, I used to work an IT desk job I
Hmm.
worked on that for 3 years. Then on April 2020, I started my Twitter account and I started going on the entrepreneurship avenue of things. A few months later, I made 5 figures off info products and copywriting services,
Mm.
and I quit my job a bit after. Got pretty popular on Twitter as well. Um, and yeah, I'm kind of on that online business sort of wave, and I'm on a bit of that influencer sort of wave as well. Not that I like to call myself that, but
So
guy
you
with a lot of
started in
followers.
April 2020.
Yes,
So basically that
exactly.
was just right after COVID. Is that accidental or
No, no.
were you inspired
Um,
by COVID or kind of forced
not
to
not necessarily. So yes, COVID happened and it played a part, but the biggest motivator was actually a breakup that I had back in February of 2020. And then COVID happened, and um, the company I used to work in closed doors for a
Mm,
bit. So we were kind of working at home, and that gave me time and solitude to not only, uh, deal with the feelings that I
hmm.
was dealing with at the time, but also to explore, this whole um, online business rabbit hole, pretty much. And yeah, on April, I finally took the courage and I started. That's pretty much it.
So okay, so that was after the company uh closed the doors. So basically
Yeah,
you were
but
left.
but 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 like we closed the doors, but I mean that as temporary, because like a
Mm,
month afterwards, when we were back on work, back in the office, and
okay. So you just had a
um
month to yourself basically.
yeah, pretty
And
much.
also dealing with the breakup, you just needed a distraction. So you went to start a business.
Uh Something along those lines. Not necessarily I needed a distraction, but I wanted to get my life going
Mm,
in another direction, and I kind of committed to that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then the company reopened, and I was back on working, and I was trying to do this whole online business stuff on the side, which I
hmm.
did, and yeah, um, that's how things got rolling, pretty much.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't know or they don't realize. They have this image of if you're gonna start a business, you're gonna have to have, 100K, 100,000 uh, of capital, startup capital. They think that, and you're gonna have to quit your job, and you know,
Nah,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
you don't need that. What you need though is time and willingness to sacrifice some things. That's
Mm,
at the time when I started, I was waking up at 5 a.m.
mm.
doing stuff for the online side of things. Um, and then at 9 a.m. I was, getting myself ready to go to work at 10. Then I got back home at um, 8 p.m. Then I went to the gym.
Mm,
I ate my food, and
yeah. And
after that it was kind of just doing some reading some stuff and going to
mm,
bed and doing the same thing for you know uh, a specific period of time, pretty much.
mm. And I guess also getting up early, getting up at 5 a.m. and knowing that you have to be at work at 9 or 10 or whatever it is, or 8,
Yeah,
kind of puts you in a spot where you have to complete the work. You have a time limit.
yeah, it creates urgency,
Mm,
which is a little brain hack, if you want to call it that, where you pretty much um, create this sense of you need to get things done in this specific time span, because we as people, we function a lot on deadlines, if that
mm,
makes sense.
yeah.
So if you give yourself a month to do something, that thing is going to take a month to complete. If you give yourself 2 weeks, it's going to take 2 weeks. A lot of people don't realize that, like, we are natural procrastinators, which is not necessarily a bad thing. People think that's you know uh, a lot of people assume it's a really bad thing to procrastinate. I
Hmm.
like to see it as more of a feature than it is like a problem. Um, you know,
How is it a feature?
procrastination, well, because procrastination is pretty much, I'm not talking like people who, like, there's two specific examples to this, but I'm obviously not talking about people who, don't do anything, and they just indulge in low value activities, and they don't do
Hmm.
anything productive with their lives. Obviously, if you put it in that um, context, procrastination is a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
But for people who actually, do what they got to do, and because we all procrastinate to an extent, right?
Oh, yes.
I think procrastination is a feature in the sense that it's your brain or your body telling you that you might not be working on the right thing, if that makes sense.
Mm,
So it's kind of like, if you've been working on a personal project for a bit and you don't feel any in, intrinsic motivation to pursue that,
hmm.
maybe that procrastination feeling is your system telling you that, this doesn't feel like play. It doesn't feel like it's your, it doesn't align necessarily with a vision you might have. It doesn't align with a passion you might have.
Hmm.
So your system gives you procrastination, pretty much. And I believe that, a lot of people fall into the trap of looking at procrastination and thinking, oh, I'm procrastinating because,
Because I'm lazy.
yeah, and that's not always true. So, that's kind of my take.
Yeah. Or
Like,
you're
if
or I'm bored because I'm lazy. Whereas sometimes it's
Yeah,
like you said, sometimes.
and even then, like, you need those moments like, if you're like if you're if the activity that you do requires some sort of um if the activity that you do requires some sort of creative work, you need those
Hmm.
breaks. um if like Inevitably you need those breaks, because otherwise, you know being busy doesn't equal being productive at
Hmm.
all. um
Yeah.
People think, like, if I work this specific amount of time, blah blah blah, and it doesn't work like that. You need creative breaks, and you need them. Otherwise, like, if you're producing content, for example, like, the quality of your content is inevitably going to diminish, because you're not, giving your brain enough breaks to be creative. uh,
Hmm.
and again, Some people look at that as procrastination. I think that comes a lot with the whole hustle culture, if you want to call it that, where people are
Yeah,
like, you need
the
to be
culture of
hustling.
hard work.
Yeah, pretty much. You need to be hard working 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to cut this and that out of your life. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve your goals. And, it's, you know, that has helped me in the past, right? And I'm not saying that it has no merit. Obviously, you need to do the work, and obviously, you need to put in time and effort into the
Mm-hmm.
things that you want to achieve. But um, it's a very, it's like I believe that uh, the the whatever solution people are looking for, uh, like it's never going to lie on the extreme um,
Mm-hmm.
side of things, right? I believe that everything can be like you should aim to make everything like sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
even if it takes longer, right? Because the reason why a lot of people do that as well is because everybody wants things right now, if that makes sense. Everybody wants everybody wants the instant gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, people are not patient enough, and as a result, the quality of work will diminish because people are acting under anxiety
Mm-hmm.
of getting the thing right now. And
Yeah.
that's why motivation fades, right? Because people get motivated, but then a backfire of that motivation, people want like everything now, and as a result, when they don't get the tangible result now, the motivation fades away and they stop or quit or whatever, right? And like what you got to realize is that whatever goal you have, whatever thing you want to achieve, is not going to happen overnight. It never happens overnight. And if you want to, you know, the best advice I could give in that regard is that if you want to achieve any outcome, you need to create a vision, you need to create a plan, and you need to be patient with the intangibles, the tangible results, and be very relentless in the actions you take,
Mm-hmm.
uh, according to the plan you created, pretty much, and be very outcome independent, pretty much, because yeah, I think and this falls with the reason why you called me on this podcast. This falls a lot into the whole leverage concept,
Mm-hmm.
really, where
Yeah, so
um,
let's talk about that. So the reason I asked you to come is because you put out a tweet saying that you're actually starting about you're thinking about starting your own podcast, and
mhm,
the first episode you wanted to do was about the concept of leverage.
yes,
So so can you explain a little bit
yes,
to the people who are
absolutely.
not familiar with the concept of leverage?
So this falls into the example I was just giving falls into the concept of leverage. Like people always people are always looking for the tangibles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the magic always lies in the intangibles, like the
Mm,
things that are happening on the back end that nobody's seeing.
mm-hmm.
So like it takes a skinny guy to go from skinny to muscular and fit 1 year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put the pictures together of the before and after uh, in that 1 year time space, and uh, you're gonna see a transformation, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like to achieve that transformation, it was all intangibles, things that you don't necessarily notice on the day-to-day basis, compounded over time, pretty much. And the same applies to anything, right? So leverage falls a lot into the whole um, concept of compound interest as well, where it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like whatever activity I want to do, whatever. thing I want, like whatever venture I want to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have two ways to look at it, right? It's kind of the concept of making a portfolio of small bets, which
Mm-hmm.
is a concept that I took from another person from Twitter called Daniel Vassallo, which is take small bets, as in do these small things over time.
Mm-hmm.
Invest your time into doing them, even if it doesn't produce any tangible outcome, because it creates leverage that you can use in the future. So
Mm.
the concept of leverage is pretty much, I like to give the example of Naval a lot to explain this concept, which is like you know a
Yeah,
Twitter
and for
guru.
for people who yeah for people who don't know, Naval is a he's an investor currently. He built a few companies. Uh, I actually got into Naval like literally yesterday by um actually from you, because I know you have a thread where you kind of go through you, the best
Yeah.
tweets that Naval has put out, and
Yes.
there's some interesting stuff in there, like the how to get rich without getting
Yeah.
lucky thread.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Have you seen the interview with him on Joe Rogan, on the Joe Rogan show?
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen plenty of stuff from Naval. He's like my favorite example because Naval has built leverage in many layers,
Hmm.
right? And Naval has leverage in many layers, and the way I like to explain it is pretty much um, in layers, really, because it goes from like the more uh, it goes from like the more subtle surface stuff to the more deeper and, like, again, intangible stuff that
Hmm.
creates leverage, right? So the first layer of Naval is really money and status leverage.
Hmm.
um Naval is a venture capital investor. He made a bunch of small bets earlier in his career. He invested in a lot of startups, and he
Hmm.
invested in a lot of companies that are now top companies like Uber, Twitter, you know and he made a lot of money because of that, obviously. So um you know he's also very well known for his philosophical takes
Hmm.
and his perspectives on a lot of things, because he gives very interesting uh, points of view. And not only that, is he's a big uh, hotshot in Silicon Valley, because
Hmm.
he's a tech guy. He, again, venture capitalist. He uh, invests a lot in like upcoming startups. Provides a lot of capital uh, leverage to these companies that they can use to build up you know their companies. So again, that's kind of the first layer that Naval has. He has that money and status leverage, where people are going to listen to him
Hmm.
because he has that leverage. But that leverage really comes from you know the layer below, which is um, the communication side of things and the network side of things. So uh, because of that superficial first leverage, which is money and status,
Hmm.
the status always comes from the money, from the most part. um, and the
Does it,
money
or
comes.
does it come from things like having a following? Because some people have a lot of
I'll go
following,
into
but
that. I'll go
okay.
into that. uh, I'll go into that, and how leverage can be applied to Twitter specifically, or any other social media, really. uh, so from money came the status, from the status came the connections, which is like the second
Hmm.
layer, the networking effect. So Naval has created these relationships with these other big people, right? That you know he's been friends with and has been connected with for some time now. um, and as a result, his message gets exponentially bigger,
Mm.
and his effect on the internet gets exponentially bigger. So uh, that's kind of the network leverage layer, which is kind of like, now that you have this superficial leverage, you can uh, it compounds into a second layer, which is the networking layer, right? People
Mm.
respect you more because you have this and that, and as a result, you make more influential connections, and as a result, you become more influential, really. So again, all of these things fall into layers. The third layer is really skills and communication leverage, which is, in order to achieve the uh, in order to achieve the two first layers of leverage, Naval had to uh, invest time and effort into his skills in various departments.
Mm.
So the money came from his investing skills. His investing skills came from, leveraging time and effort to create them and skin in the game, pretty much. As a result of compounding experimentation and learning,
Mm-hmm.
compounding that into skin in the game, he gained a certain set of results, which fall into the category of the first and the second layer. As a result, um, so pretty much those first layers come as a result of that third layer, really. And not only that, Naval also created uh, leverage of communication, which is, he also worked on his communication skills, his writing, his speaking, the way he articulates ideas and uh, articulates concepts in a
Mm-hmm.
very digestible and understandable way, makes it so, gives him more leverage in the sense of, he gets actually more respect, more exposure, because his message can be understood by more people. So by working on his communication skills, he creates this leverage where, even though the concepts he explains are pretty complex, he has the ability to break them down into simple, digestible content that is more
Mm.
accessible to more people. And again, that's leverage, that's skill leverage. And all of this is compounded by the fourth layer, which is time,
Mm.
and that's the biggest leverage of all that people
Yeah,
don't realize.
that's where everything flows from.
Exactly. Uh, like people, like the way I look at it is, and I look at leverage from this principle, which is, what can I do today that will build me leverage tomorrow? So let's say, I'll give you an example, right? Because anything that is meaningful or worth it in your life will always be a result of leverage compounded over time, pretty much. And let me give you like a simple example. Let's say you have no skills at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to start a blog, let's say, right? But and you have like, when you think about it, you have like two options. You can either start this blog and uh learn how to create the blog, write the articles even if they suck initially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that, or you can stay in your little bubble and be like, yo, I'm not going to start this blog because I don't have anything to say, or I'm not going to start this podcast, or I'm not going to start this Twitter account, or I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that because I don't have that prior experience. you know and that's a big problem that a lot of people face. They really don't have any sort of leverage, um, because in our current landscape, you are made to believe that, and it's marketing, really, that you can do anything anytime you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true to an extent, right? I wrote this tweet once where it's kind of like, the real people who make it big on Twitter are the
Mm.
people who have great writing skills, but
Yeah.
also leverage on their side. So that's the thing. Like, you can be a great writer and make it on Twitter, right? But
Hmm.
it's not gonna you're not gonna have that Naval effect.
Hmm.
The Naval, which is pretty much, his writing is great, his communication skills are great, right? And his content is great, but that all comes from the leverage he built over time, really.
Right.
Uh, if he didn't have that, um, like, he could write the exact same things, even though he wouldn't, because he wouldn't, understand those concepts
Hmm.
to be able to break them down into simple content. But even if that's the case, he wouldn't make it as far as he did on Twitter, because people would not look at him the same way, really. So I guess the way I like to look at the concept of leverage is, anything you do today, any experimentation you do today is leverage in the future, really. So let's say you want to do you have the imposter syndrome, right? That a lot of
Hmm.
people have, but you go ahead and you find out how to build the blog. You learn about SEO, because when you're building a blog, there's some things that you need to learn about. You need to
Hmm.
learn about web design, and it's very simple. Web design is pretty simple. You don't have to learn how to code to create a website these days. Pretty
Yeah.
pretty simple. So you learn how to make a website. Then you learn about SEO. How to make your website rank higher on the Google search, right? Because it's
Hmm.
important, because you want to get more eyes on your blog or your article, right? So you learn about SEO. Then you learn about writing. How to write better articles, right? So as you're learning through experimentation, right? A lot of people don't realize this, but what you're doing is you're building leverage. So let's say you
Yeah.
do this for like over a year, right? Now, um, your blog is ranking a lot higher than it used to when you started. Your writing has gotten a lot better. Because you've learned writing techniques, and you've put in your reps, perfected your writing, and you know how to create a aesthetic website or blog, right? Now
Hmm.
think about it. With this skill set, you can now go out there and pretty much start pitching, businesses, for example, a website, right?
Hmm.
Or like, some web design or some SEO services, like whatever, right? So from that experiment that you did, out of, for your own pleasure, or, for your own to feed your own curiosity, you created leverage that you can now use to, build your personal, build further on your personal skill set and your personal wealth, right? So it's kind of like, you created the blog, you learned about all of these things, and now you have a skill set that you can sell, for example, to small businesses, and charge like uh, $2,000, $3,000, right, for
Yeah.
like a monthly retainer, whatever, right? Now you go out there, but how are you going to sell these services to these businesses, right? So now you need to learn about cold emailing, cold outreach, copywriting. So you go learn again, all of this out of curiosity, right?
Yeah.
So you go through these processes, and you learn all of these things, and you start experimenting again, because you don't really have, again, when you look at all of this stuff that I'm outlining, none of this holds uh, virtually any risk, right? The
Yeah.
only risk that it holds is risk of failure, pretty much, right? But the risk of failure, like, is not it doesn't really exist. You only fail when stop, pretty much,
Yeah.
because you
Well,
got time.
you learn on the way. Every failed experiment is a way to learn a new skill set. Like,
Exactly.
that's how you learn. Um,
Exactly.
but
So,
like, there's also like a psychological, like you said, like like a fear of failure, like
uh
the fear of maybe you put out a
mm,
post and no one reads it, or
yeah, sure, that exists, but it's all in your mind, really.
hmm,
Uh, and it's been programmed into you over, the evolution of the human experience, really, because 2000 years ago, if you failed, you'd be dead pretty
Mm,
much.
yeah.
And not only that, while growing up, not only in your genetics, but it's also in your society. Like, people are programmed to believe that if you fail, like, you're going to be mocked, people are going to make
Yeah.
fun of you, and you're a loser, and blah blah blah, right? Because that's the experience that you get growing up, right? Like, you see it all the time, like, and this comes as a result of overall societal consensus, really. But kids are programmed to, if he fails, he's a loser, so the other kids will make fun
Yes.
of him, right? And it's this vicious cycle that pretty much happens over generations, pretty much. But because the parents back at home told the kid that, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're a loser, right? Then the kid
Mm-hmm.
gets programmed, and then if he sees like another kid losing, he's gonna make fun of him, blah blah blah. So it's like this vicious cycle. But what you need to realize, especially when you become an adult, really, when you reach like adulthood, is that all of that is nonsensical bullshit, really. Like, you literally really have nothing to lose, and that also happens because we are instinctively programmed to want to fit in, right? So like, when you do like, a lot of us, when we do things, we are doing it out of this perspective of wanting to fit in into something, because it's human nature, pretty much. So people don't take these perceived risks, which are not really risks. It's just perception, really. It's a psychological perception that you have that it's a risk, but it really ain't, really. So we don't take these actions out of failure of perceived failure, that
Mm-hmm.
again, we're gonna fail and people are gonna make fun of us. But what you need to realize, that nobody really cares at the end of the day. Like, people don't care about you as much as you think they care about you. And the another thing that it's beautiful about the internet, which is like the ultimate leverage, is that you don't have to you don't need permission to do whatever you
Mm.
want on the internet, really.
Yeah. Like
You
Twitter
can,
is like a cocktail party, except you don't need an invitation.
yeah, pretty much, for example. But not only Twitter, like any social media, really.
Mm.
Like, you can start an account today and do whatever the fuck you want, and that's really it. Like, and of course, again, this goes back to what I said earlier. People are looking for the tangibles, right, all the time. But
Yeah.
the way I like to look at it is, every action I take today, even if it fails, is leverage that I can possibly use in the future, pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
That's a
uh,
good
uh,
mental hack. That's what it is, really.
yeah, so it's kind of like, when you start seeing the world this way, where everything is leverage, like like I write all of these tweets, and to me it's just leverage. It's just me practicing my writing skills, my thinking, improving my thinking,
Mm-hmm.
improving my, like, developing on ideas that are abstract, really. uh and all of that gives me kind of leverage that I can use in the future, and be like, look, I did this and this and this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can show other people what I've accomplished. And because I've accomplished something, people are more inclined to listen to what I have to say, really. So, again, the way I like to look at the world is, uh, the uh, most impactful things that you're gonna do in your life will be all compounded over time. Your
Mm.
best relationships are gonna be compounded over time. Um, your best, um, like, your business will compound, of whatever it is, will compound over time. Like, whatever you do, you're only going to get your best results out of uh, compounding them over time, really. Which is why, again, for example, if I do something today for someone who is like more successful than me, and I do it for free, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do it for free. I help them out. I am genuinely interested in what they have to say or in what they do, and I genuinely help them out because they're good people. I like them. Yada yada yada. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like by doing that, I'm creating leverage that, and it might not happen, right? But that's you shouldn't look at it from a perspective of, oh, and what if like that outcome doesn't happen, right? Like you shouldn't think in that way, because again, even if it doesn't happen, you're still getting experience that you can use in the future with somebody else and do it better, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I look at it, I see someone more successful than me and I like them, so I make a connection with them, and I help them out for free, whatever, right? Now, either one of two things happen. I help them out, you know, they they are satisfied with whatever I did, and nothing really happens after that, and that's fine. That there's no problem. There's absolutely no problem in that, because again, you're expanding your skill set. You're
Mm-hmm.
training yourself to do something better in the future. But there's a chance, there's an opportunity there that you created for yourself, that one day, because uh, the law of giving back and you know reciprocity, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like, is very strong in us human beings. What you did now is you created this opportunity for yourself, where maybe one day in the future this person comes back to you, this person that is more successful than you comes back to you and presents you with an opportunity that you wouldn't otherwise have access to if you didn't do that, you know a couple months back, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is kind of how you create your own luck, in a way, which is, if you do this sort of behavior over time, many times, eventually you are bound to find some sort of
Yeah.
success or
Eventually,
some
but
sort of
eventually those
opportunity.
people are gonna, reciprocate and help you out. But what
Yeah,
these, the problem is those misses. A lot of people feel like if they reach out to someone and that person doesn't reciprocate that help, then somehow it's on them. It's that they're not good enough because that person didn't reciprocate, or
it's irrelevant
they're
again.
always looking for that validation.
Yeah, but again, it's irrelevant, really. What it really is irrelevant is, how do I put it?
Yeah, so what
You
would you
gotta,
say to those people?
I would say it's irrelevant because you gotta look at it from the standpoint of, even if that doesn't happen, you're still building yourself up to be of
Mm,
more value, not only to society, but more importantly to those that are close to you, because you got to look at the world as, like, the virtue lies in individuals always, and the
mhm.
way you make the world a better place is by uh, the way you make the world a better place is by working, making yourself of higher value first, really, before
Yeah.
you try to help other people out as like an authority figure, really. So it's kind of like, accept that you're, like, all of us are apprentices to somebody else,
Hmm.
and that, like, you have two people that they want to learn a skill, right?
Hmm.
One of them makes like this big deal where he's kind of like, oh, I'm not capable of learning this skill, blah blah blah, and the other one makes like is best possible pitch to the best people in the industry that know that skill. And they're like, yo, I'll work for you for free, or I'll do this, I'll do X, Y, and Z for you without you having any trouble. So they create like an appealing offer to the guy that's above him.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they work for free or whatever, right? Like the way you look at it is, I'm getting uh skin in the game that I can use in the future to leverage. Like for example, let's talk a bit about info products, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a business model that I believe will only go higher in the scale in the next 5 years.
So what's an info product?
A course,
Oh,
a
okay.
video, like an ebook, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right, about a certain subject, right?
Yeah.
Think about
Content,
it.
basically, paid content.
Yeah,
Mm.
right. Think about it. It's like you, let's say you start a business, right? And you fail, and then you start another and you fail, and you start the third and you have some success, and then on the fourth you knock it out of the park, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you only knock it out of the park because you failed the other three previously, really, because
Yeah.
you accumulated enough skin in the game and enough experience to know what's work, and gathered enough data to know what's working and what's not going to work. So you iterate as you go, and on the fourth you create that business and you are successful, right? And you get to a point where you hit like 50K a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start like an agency and you hit 50K a month. Now you literally got leverage to create another business, which
Mm.
is the info, and follow the info model, because people will want to know what you did to go from A to Z,
Mm-hmm.
and you can sell them that knowledge. So now, like, again, it's all leverage, really. Like the fact that you did tried that first business, failed, tried that second business, failed, tried that third business, failed, then iterated as you went, looked at your mistakes, looked at the feedback that you were getting, iterated, improved. Now you were able to, nail it on the fourth attempt. You
Mm.
know, people now, not only are you successful and people respect you more, again, that's money and status leverage,
Mm-hmm.
but that allows you to be in a position where people will want to know what you're doing, and you can provide it to them for free or for a price tag, like whatever you want, right? But you can literally leverage the current experience that you have, and the like your results, to help other people do the same thing you did, because some people are always going to be interested if you go to public with the knowledge that right?
Mm-hmm.
If you uh put put what you know out in public. So it's like a wheel, really,
Mm-hmm.
that keeps on growing as you add more and more experience and put in and get more and more skin in the game. So when you start looking at the world from a perspective of everything I do is not now is leverage in the future,
Mm-hmm.
you like that fear of what if I don't, what if I'm not successful, what if this, what if that, right?
Yeah.
All of that kind of disappears, right? If Of course it's not going to disappear overnight, but if you continuously tell yourself that everything that you're doing now is something that you'll be able to leverage in the future, either tangibly or intangibly. So again, for example, I just gave you an example. You built those three first business, you attempted those three first businesses and you failed. This gave you intangible leverage in data and in iteration
Yeah.
and feedback that you used to make that fourth uh, business successful. So once you start looking at the world in this sort of lens, and perspective, like all of that becomes, um, it's kind of like the curtain is unveiled, and you see reality for what it is, which is just pretty much a set of cause and effect,
Mm.
um, actions, really. Like reality is nothing but a set of uh, cause and effect behaviors, really.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of thinking about it. You basically just gave a blueprint of how to become successful in business.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, what people need to realize is no matter what, you're always gonna be a sucker in the beginning,
mm,
because like nobody, like only very few of us have access to the best of the best without um putting any upfront work. And that's the excuse most people give, like, oh, I'm born under bad circumstances, or oh, I'm this, I'm
yeah,
that, right? And that may be true for people like in a third world country, right? Like people in Africa who literally don't, uh, but even then, man, I know some shooters from Africa, man, like people
sure.
that are killing it. And here's the thing.
Of course. I mean, especially if you can get access to the internet. Like if you're just on your phone and
Yeah,
you're somewhere in Africa, at least your cost of living will be lower. So then, if you
uh,
can get some money from a market that's, it has a lot of customers based in the West, then
yeah,
you're killing it.
yeah, exactly. So you need to realize that none of you, like, and I'm gonna be quite unapologetic saying this, but it's kind of like nobody is a victim. Like,
Mm,
again, reality is nothing but a bunch of cause and effect patterns that you create for yourself. And you need to realize that anything, I'm not going to be on some woo woo, you can achieve anything you want, blah, 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 right?
mm,
Like, because I believe that's just motivation talk. And
yeah,
it's, it's just to get the people that give that, give people that dopamine hit. What I do believe is any scenario is achievable for you if you create the right plan, follow through the necessary actions, and mix that with your natural talents.
yeah,
So, like, that's the key to succeed in life, really, because we're all different. We all have a particular set of skills or a particular set of strong points that are uh, genetically
mm,
inherited into us. So a lot of people overlook that, and they should not, really. But the point is, like, even if you are not playing to your best talents, you can still
mm,
become great. But the key to winning at life, I truly believe, is mixing your natural curiosity and talents into a plan that's concise, that has a deadline, that is well made, with
mm,
along with a vision, a long-term vision, and that is tailored with the step-by-step actions necessary to achieve it, and just follow through consistently for a set period amount of time. And it's impossible that you don't get some sort of result. Like,
yeah,
that's what people need to realize. And all of us get demotivated. I had periods uh coming up where I felt sometimes that I wanted to quit, right? And I still do sometimes. But if you just keep going, if you just keep showing up every day and keep improving on one thing, even if it's, again, intangible, that you can't clearly see it, that it doesn't have a metric associated with it, but it's making you progress, you will eventually succeed. And yeah, and start looking at the world as everything I do now is leverage that I can use in the future to compound and multiply my results by X amount, pretty much.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, people who are at a disadvantage. But the problem with the kind of thinking where you say, I'm at a disadvantage, therefore I'm not going to do anything, is it only can make things worse. So, like if you even if you aren't going to get to a place where, let's say, you want to be a millionaire, maybe you're not going to be a millionaire, but you know, not trying and like making excuses is only going to take you away from your optimal path. Whatever your optimal path is, whether your optimal path is to get to be a millionaire or a billionaire or just be a little bit happier than you are now. Making excuses only takes you away from that optimal path, whatever it is for you, because you don't know how it's going to turn out. But you
Yeah,
can rest assured, if you make up excuses and if you don't go your optimal path, you can rest assured it's only going to make things worse.
exactly. Um, and
So so
it's
there's
just
there's a
yeah. Go
lot
ahead.
of I guess you kind of answered that already. There's a lot of people I know who will, they feel like they have to prepare. Like I've known a lot of people in my life who, like, oh, I want to be an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, and
they
then
they they stay on that prepare
yeah,
sort of
yeah, yeah. Like
stage.
I know people who
Yeah,
are like 30. I knew someone who was 35 and she wanted to be an entrepreneur, and all she did was research. And now I would ask her, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm researching." And it's like, do you have are you starting anything? Nope, just researching. And at some point you're gonna have to ask yourself,
I
like,
mean, you should research, but
oh yeah, of
like
course. I'm just
staying,
saying, like, she was 35 and she was researching for the past 15 years.
yeah, again, you can research all you want, but like you're not gonna think your way into your desired results. Just doesn't work like that. Um, it's just you got to realize that it's just you need to realize that like action moves the needle the
Mm,
most. Um, like yeah, you need to iterate, and this is something like a lot of people mess this up where
mm,
they go through it backwards, right? They're like, I need to have this perfect, I need to have this perfect, I need to have this, right? Not realizing that you're only gonna like it's kind of like that principle that quantity leads to quality,
mm,
and people take the that thing backwards where they're like they're so focused on, oh, I need this, I need that, where they don't realize that the only way to get to a certain point is by doing it, and iterating eventually. Like
mm,
if you're not making like 100K a month, man, you or like 50K a month, you don't need that much. Like people are so obsessed with systems, right? And
mm,
systems are great. And I think that systems thinking is truly one of the hacks to win at life. But man, if you're just an inspiring entrepreneur trying to get to your first $10,000 a month,
mm,
my guy, you don't need all of this prep. All you need is to get started and face the rejection, face that initial pain, and improve from that. Really, like there's not much I can say regarding that. It's like it's one of those things where you only like you can watch all the motivational videos that you want. You can
mm.
get all the dopamine hit that you want. But at the end of the day, if you don't if you don't put in the reps, you're never gonna accomplish anything meaningful with your life. Because again, all of your best things in life will come from reps, effort, smart work, which is pretty much combining your plan with your, long-term vision, with your set of natural talents, putting it into action and just letting it compound over time. Pretty much, like there's no overnight success stories. There's none,
So
really.
one more question for you.
Yeah.
How does this all apply to Twitter? Because basically, you've been quite successful on Twitter and in quite a short time as well. So I
Yeah.
guess a lot of people will be interested to hear how can you apply that to, if someone's interested in creating a Twitter account and getting a following there.
My best advice to people wanting to build a Twitter account and uh, build a following is this: uh, focus. How do I put this? Focus on creating that leverage while
Mm,
you are building in public. I think that's the best way to describe it. A lot of people, they they go at it backwards. They see all the gurus, and the gurus say, "Oh, you need to do this X, Y, and Z," right?
mm-hmm,
So they try to position themselves as like an expert,
mm,
because it attracts more people uh from the masses, because people are always looking uh to someone that they can learn from or be entertained by. Really, that's all social media is. it's
mm,
it's it's either like you're giving value in terms of helping people get from A to B, or you're entertaining people. Like, really, if you look at it, that's just what it is. My best advice is, mix the both of them. So be entertaining, and
mm-hmm,
if you can teach people something, teach them something. But don't try to, you know, make it appear as you're someone that you're not, really,
yeah,
because eventually people are going to see through it, and you'll build a much more loyal audience and following. Because having a following, having a certain number of followers doesn't really equate to having an audience.
yeah,
People think that's how it works. It's not really. And you know, if you want to build that audience, be authentic, share your failures, share your personal stuff. Again, you're all be aware that you're always gonna have people who don't like you. I have people who don't like me on Twitter, uh, and that have tried to uh, create conflict with me. But it just comes with the
yeah,
territory, really. So that's really all the advice I have. There's obviously certain tactics and ways uh, that you can do stuff. Certain tweet formats,
mm,
certain topics, blah blah blah. That's all cool, right? But again, growing a Twitter following is really about, one, knowing how to write properly, knowing how to communicate ideas and concepts in a digestible, simple way. Two, having leverage. So if you don't have leverage, focus on building some leverage, and it will 10x your
mm.
growth. Because if you have leverage, then people will look at you as someone who has something productive to say.
So
And
focus on building the skills and on building the relationships in the
yeah,
community that you want to
absolutely.
get big in.
Because again, you can go you can go at it from the tactics standpoint, where you're just spamming platitudes all freaking day, and it's relatable, so people interact with it, you get more exposure, blah blah blah. But if you want to build an actual following and an actual audience that will be there to support you and stuff, then do it do it the right way. It's gonna be slower. It's gonna take more time, but when the compounding if the compounding starts taking effect, you will feel it a lot
Hmm.
more than if you are just doing things, you know, the way, the cheap way, if you want to call it that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
And understand some stuff. Learn some persuasion. Learn about persuasion. Learn about uh, social skills. Learn about uh, influence. Learn about copywriting. Learn about all of that stuff, and you'll understand people better. And when you understand people better, you can uh, create content that will be more appealing, pretty much.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's about it.
Listen, man, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Uh,
Goodbye,
all right.
everyone. Oh, I guess, yeah, before you go, can you tell people where they can find you on social
Yeah,
media and
sure,
stuff?
sure. They can find me on Twitter. The at is you actualized, which is YOUAC. Um, Wait, I need to look at this.
Yeah, we can you actualize. We can put a link in the description, which is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, sure. You actualized. And yeah, that people can find me there, and you know that's about it, really.
Thank you for
I kind of only use Twitter out of. I have other social medias, but I don't
yeah.
like to share them. So yeah, just go on Twitter and you'll find me there.
Okay, we'll put the link in the description. Thank you for
All right,
coming on, and I'll
absolutely, my pleasure.
thank you.
Have a great
Thank
night.
you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.